So, welcome to Healthy Chats with a Doc with Dr. Brooke Leverone. What we're going to talk about today is pretty important. It's magnesium. So, magnesium, when I was doing some research on it, I was shocked by how important it is for our healthy functioning and how many people are actually low in magnesium. So, give us an overview of why magnesium is so important to our overall functioning.
Well, magnesium it makes up probably about 60% of the mineral content in our body. So that's a pretty high amount, right? So it has a lot of important functions that are all over the place, from our brain health to moods to muscle relaxation to cardiac health. There you guys are. So it exists in high amounts in our body for a reason, because we need to use it in a lot of different ways. And most of us are a little bit deficient in our magnesium. Up to 75% of the population isn't meeting their dietary daily recommendations for magnesium. And it works very ubiquitously throughout the body in these different areas that are important to overall health and well-being and just your day-to-day function. So it is an important mineral. We often don't get a lot of it, but it is something that we want to pay attention to and potentially supplement with too, depending on what your health goals are and what else is going on with you symptom-wise.
That's fascinating. I mean, 75% is deficient. So, I mean, I know there's a couple of times when I had a really hard time sleeping or waking up in the middle of the night, and we thought it might be magnesium and that type of thing. But so let's talk about, what does magnesium as a cofactor mean? What does that mean when they say that?
So you remember when we always talk about our factory analogy? So for those of you who've watched some of the episodes before, I always talk about the body as one big biological factory. And in that factory are all these assembly lines and these machines on the assembly lines that convert one product to the next product. And all of the workers in the factory that help everything function are our vitamins and minerals. And some machines require specifically trained workers to work that machine. So those workers are the cofactors for that machine. They help that machine work. That machine needs to work because the trained operator knows how to make that machine work. So that cofactor helps that machine on the assembly line, helps that enzyme in the body to actually do what it needs to do. So, excuse me. So if we're low, so magnesium is one of these important workers in the factory. It's one of these cofactors for these enzymes. And so if you're a little bit low on these minerals or these cofactors, some of those machines in that factory aren't going to be working as well as they should be. And when you, like I always say, if you bring more workers to the assembly line, you're going to get more factory output, right? So that's magnesium as a cofactor. It's a key worker for that machine to work on that assembly line.
That's great. So that makes sense now. I love the factory analogy. It helps me visualize.
Right? I mean, there's so many ways to use that.
Right. So basically, magnesium is a major player in the factory, and it creates that biochemical reaction that kicks in the enzymes and makes the factory work more efficiently.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some key parts. They have perfectly said. And then there's key parts of the factory that do key functions, in the body. So we know that magnesium is really important for muscle health and relaxation. We know it's really important for lowering blood pressure. We know that it helps with sleep, as you mentioned, because it supports the processing of healthy neurotransmitters that are key in our sleep pathways. So there's, some key areas that we know that magnesium can be really important for.
Yeah, so let's talk about, like, magnesium is in a lot of the foods we eat. And can you get enough magnesium from your diet, or and what kinds of foods are that are good sources of magnesium?
Yeah, so there is arguments that you can get your daily need of magnesium met from the food that you intake. Now, I just mentioned a minute ago, 75% of us are not getting our dietary needs met. Part of that is because we necessarily aren't eating enough of these foods on a regular basis to get it in. But if you were to focus on, like almonds are really high, pumpkin seeds are really high. So our nuts and our grains are going to be where you're going to see most of the magnesium in. Spinach is a really good one. Dark chocolate has a lot of magnesium. So, that might be why we feel so relaxed and good after eating a nice piece of dark chocolate. So you can get it, lots of nuts and seeds. Pumpkin seeds are a huge one. Almonds and cashews, spinach, like I said, dark chocolate, black beans, quinoa, halibut. These are, so you can get it from some seafood as well too. So these are the foods that if you're eating on a regular basis, you're going to be a little bit better off with your magnesium levels and keeping your magnesium levels up. One of the things that I always say, though, is that in the world that we live in, we have a very high demand of performance. Most of us aren't getting enough sleep. We're working long hours. We maybe have families. We have other stressors that are going on, the world in general. And all of these things mean that that factory is at full speed all the time. And so you need more workers to replace the workers that are getting tired, right? In order to keep that factory going around the clock like we do in our modern society. So a lot of times, therefore, even if you're meeting your daily your daily requirements, you might actually need to supplement with a little bit more to achieve either optimal wellness or to alleviate some symptoms that can come up if you're deficient, if you don't have quite enough magnesium.
And I also understand that magnesium, kind of more than any other, nutrients, has different types of magnesium isn't just magnesium, right?
Right. There's different forms of magnesium that will affect different areas. So depending on what your goals are and why you're, maybe looking to take magnesium, will help you decide which magnesium form you want to do. And the reason that these forms act differently mostly is because of how they're absorbed. So we talked about this in a bioavailability talk, I think a couple months ago. I can't remember when that was. And so that means what is the bioavailability of these nutrients based on what form they're in? So it's, we have magnesium malate and threonate and glycinate and oxalate. So these different forms have different this magnesium has a lot of options. So we have different forms that then result in different levels of bioavailability, which again, that means how well is it absorbed across the intestines and getting into the bloodstream? And then how well is that form utilized by the cells for metabolic activity? And different forms will be utilized in different areas differently. So magnesium oxalate, for example, or you might see as magnesium oxide, is not very well absorbed at all. This one, though, can be beneficial if somebody's struggling with constipation and needs help with moving the bowels. The magnesium oxalate, which isn't absorbed into the body but stays local in the intestines, can help relax the bowels so that somebody can have an easier bowel movement. But your magnesium glycinate and magnesium threonate are going to be more highly absorbed by the body. So I like magnesium glycinate for muscle relaxation, for headaches, for blood pressure. I also like magnesium glycinate for sleep because it helps with the neurotransmitter pathways. Now, magnesium threonate, which is also very well absorbed, has also been shown to be beneficial neurologically. So for things like sleep, there's some suggestions that it's really good for other functions in the brain, like memory, and possibly helping with things like early dementia. So the threonate can help with the brain chemistry and neurochemistry. Glycinate, we know, can help with the neurochemistry and helping with the sleep patterns as well. And also is really beneficial for the relaxation because magnesium specifically, part of its role in the factory is muscle contractility. So increasing muscle contraction, or actually decreasing muscle contraction, or helping the muscles recover from contraction is what I should say there. So it helps relax the muscles. So if you have tight, sore muscles, muscle aches, if you have high blood pressure, so the smooth muscles in the vasculature are, all locked up, then magnesium can help relax all those things. And so I like the magnesium glycinate for some of those forms. I do like magnesium glycinate for sleep, but magnesium, again, threonate can also help with some of that and some of those potential neurologic processes around a memory. And then I like the magnesium oxalate for bowel function if you're struggling with constipation. That one's not going to be absorbed as well and have those other benefits. There's also a pill versus a powder form as well too. Now, there are arguments to take the powder form over the pill form. There's some arguments that the powder is better absorbed because you don't have to break down the capsule and the stomach acid, or activate the mineral, the what it's bound to, right? So you don't have to like activate it if it's in the powdered form. There's sort of mixed studies on how true that may or may not be. I like the powder form simply because it's one less pill to have to take. So it's part of my nightly ritual where I'll add, have my little glass of water before I go to bed with my magnesium in it. But if somebody is like, I don't like the taste of the powder, I always forget to take the powder, it's easier for me to take a capsule. Well, then take the capsule, because you're still getting it more than if you didn't drink the powder, right? So it can also just be a personal preference as to whether or not it's easier for you to take a capsule or if you prefer to do the powdered drink. There's not strong evidence one way or the other on those ones. So I usually fall into the favor of, well, which one are you actually going to take? Take that one.
Yeah, a lot of it is your personal habits. It's like, if you're going to go brush your teeth at night and you've got your little calcium there, you can stir it up and mix it, then it might work. But if you're not that person, you probably should take a different form.
Right, exactly. And
so
then
in summary, because I know you need to run here really quickly.
Oh, right, yes,
so,
we're doing the wine hormones next.
Sounds like what I heard you say, it can really help with your exercise performance, blood pressure. But there's things like diabetes and depression too, right? That magnesium plays too, and
So,
that's that important.
Yeah, magnesium helps with muscle health. So it can help with muscle soreness. It can also help with muscle performance. There are studies that show that there's increased performance with athletes when they take magnesium on a regular basis. There is also lowering blood pressure because it also helps relax those smooth muscles. Magnesium also plays a role in blood sugar metabolism. So that means that we can see decreased risks of type 2 diabetes with people who have sufficient magnesium levels. We see a correlation with low magnesium and higher risk of type 2 diabetes because that has such an important role in blood sugar regulation. And then migraines are also a big part of that, partly because of the muscle tension that can contribute to a migraine. We also see that be beneficial as well. And I think that those are all the ones that you asked me about, but those are kind of the big ones. And then bowel health, right? So those are kind of the big ones that we look at. And if you're taking magnesium, whatever form you're taking, 300 to 500 milligrams is usually about right. You'll know if you're taking too much if you get loose stools. So be aware of that. And if you're taking more than about 500, you can start to deplete your calcium levels. So you do have to potentially do a calcium magnesium combination product to make sure that you're not, because these, like other minerals in our body, they play off of each other. So if one is too high, the other one can become too low. So if you're taking too much magnesium, you can deplete your calcium. So you want to make sure that you're taking those together if you're going above that 500 milligram mark. But usually most people do well with 300 up to 500 milligrams daily to help with all of those things that we just mentioned without ill effect. And again, if you have loose stools from the magnesium, you're taking too much, you need to back off. And some people are really sensitive to that. So, you just have to keep an eye on it.
Well, last question, because we're running out of time again, is I've heard that there are some over-the-counter and prescription medications that can interfere with magnesium absorption. So is that something you talk to your doctor about, or
I would always
way to address that?
Right. So it can have to do with, when you're taking the medication, you may just want to take them separate from the medication. Certainly things like antacids will, bind the magnesium and so, prevent that. So you just want to take magnesium at a separate time as when you're doing that. So usually it's just as simple as taking your medications at separate times than your magnesium supplement. So if there's something that you take when you go to bed, you want to probably just check with your doctor to find out if that's going to interfere with your supplementation as well.
Well, doctor, thank you for teaching us about this important mineral, magnesium. It sounds like it's critical. And until next week, have a great time.
Awesome. Thanks so much again, guys. I will see you next week.